The State Capture Commission, you can go to www.sabcnews.com. We are streaming it. The ANC, a breaking news story now. Panyaza Lesufi has now been moved to the Gauteng Education Department. That's our breaking news story for today. We've invited Mahlako Komane, SABC reporter, to break this down for us and give us a sense as to why. Mahlako, thank you very much indeed for coming through. Okay, when a premier picks a specific person for a specific role or portfolio, he has a vision in mind and thinks that that person has the requisite skills in order to make a difference. In this instance, he thought Mr. Lesufi had some skills to make a difference in finance. Now he's moved back, put him back into education. Why?
We did wake up to this break. We didn't wake up to it, but we just got the news that indeed Mr. Lesufi has been moved back to the education portfolio. We will understand that, MEC Lesufi is seen as a worker. He's a servant. He gets his hands dirty, as you would have seen, the record that he has within the sector in that one term that he served. So I'm assuming that the Premier was then hoping that he would go and he would clean up that finance department. It might not be glamorous, but it's definitely an important department within the province. We know that service providers, having been bemoaning the fact that, payments come in late. This is a problem for small businesses, trying to get off the ground. Payments are very important. Yeah. I'd also remember that entrepreneurs also tweeting that they are hoping to get paid within 2 weeks or so, with him having been when he was eyed for this, he was announced to be the MEC for finance in the province, but I think he also tweeted back saying that he hopes to make it even shorter. Yeah. Those are the important things I'm assuming that the Premier had in mind when he had taken Lesufi to that particular department, right, that he will do the work, get his hands dirty.
So there was this pushback from society in general that led to this change. Is that correct? Yes,
Blaine, you remember when the cabinet, Makhura's cabinet was announced, that social media was abuzz as to why move him there. Why mess with the why mess with the working formula? Yeah. The work that he's done. If I can just go back, he took up the portfolio in 2014. He had just come from being the spokesperson of the Minister of Education, Ms. Mchecha. So he's been in this industry. He's cut his teeth in that. He introduced ITC schools, e-learning schools of specializations. Those were welcomed. But also importantly, he also introduced the online application systems, with some parents saying that they were having a lot of pushbacks when they wanted to apply at certain schools. There was an issue that was very close to his heart, is opening up Gauteng education to citizens or residents of Gauteng across the board, irrespective of color or economic circumstances. Those were issues that he was extremely passionate about. But we also know he's caught challenges and battles with certain people within the education sectors. They went as far as the Constitutional Court, who saw that admissions, he had to then change the policy. But also just before, a week before the online system was meant to go on this year, he was back having to consult again with those parties. It's happening now, although it had teething problems, them saying that it was very map heavy, but that was as a result of consultations. So I think those were the things that he had championed within the sector. But it's also, quite important we have to give credit to Premier Makhura for listening to the people and not living in isolation to the needs and the wants of the people. And I'm assuming that's the type of premier that he wants to be, a premier that listens. Because if you look at the statement that was taken, he speaks about feedback from society, the education sector, and also the movement. I'm assuming he is talking about the African National Congress.
So you got some pushback from the party as well?
Yeah, he did get some pushback. That's what we're reading from the statement that we're seeing. But also quite important that even the education sector, seeing that, being that passionate about the man, seeing that he should then go back to this. But also, the Minister of Education, Ms. Mchecha, also on record saying that, in as much as the Premier does have the freedom to choose who he wants to work with, she felt that it was not the wisest of moves to move Lesufi away from the education portfolio in the province, give him a second term, let him finish up what he has started. And it will be very interesting to see going forward how they will finally fix this online application systems. Like I said, there are teething problems. It's a system, it's open to being fixed. But also, the education minister also saying that they will be using the Western Cape model and the Gauteng model. They will piggyback on that and try and apply that in the other provinces. So those are the things that where you can see the areas of excellence that Gauteng has come. And also, we know that Gauteng, in terms this last year in particular, was number one in terms of the pass rate, in terms of, and also it's, the MEC was also very specific that he didn't just want pass rates, but the quality of pass to him was very important. In Gauteng regions, the different districts and regions have it started at 80, it's sitting at 85% pass mark that he wants to see each and every school in Gauteng achieving in terms of matriculation passes. Yeah,
look, no doubt he is skilled, he's a worker, and we see his work when we broadcast some of the stories that he's done in terms of the schools, the technology that he's pushing in various sectors. I mean, there were some calls for him to move up to national as well, calls from some quarters. So is it going to be a straight swap in terms of the finance portfolio, the e-government portfolio? Is it just going to be a straight swap in terms of the MECs?
It seems like from the statement that the MEC Nomantu Ralihoku will be moving to finance. So it seems like it's a straight swap. Obviously, they would have to iron out in terms of the staff component, who's taking who and who's leaving who behind. But it seems like that. But I mean, it will also be very interesting to keep track and see how going forward, when you've achieved so much, what is it that he's going to do for Gauteng education? Township schools being an area that he also focuses quite a lot on. A lot of money has been pumped into that to ensure that, learners don't have to move out of their homes to try and access a better education in the suburbs. So it's going to be very, very interesting watching the next 5 years. What is it that he will achieve in those 5 years?
Have the respective MECs reacted in any way?
Coming into studio, we haven't seen anyone reacting, but just from the groups that I follow and the social media people that I follow, people saying, they were wondering what was it that was happening. It's good. But I think a lot of people also just grateful that Premier Makhura being very responsive to the people and, including and taking people into his confidence and listening to their pleas and their cries, because we will know that, society sometimes does feel that politicians or leaders are not responsive to their needs. So I think there was an excellent move from the Premier. They're just listening to society as a whole and also indicating that this is as a result of people speaking up.
Let's just talk a bit more about what more can Panyaza Lesufi do in the education portfolio? What are some of the pressing issues at hand?
It's definitely, you will know Gauteng education is in demand. I think after KwaZulu-Natal, it has the biggest number of, from grade 1 to 12 of students. The issue of space, we know infrastructure was a big issue the last few months with the school in the Val, with that walkway. Then there was that whole drive where schools were then encouraged to come and bring in their challenges when it came to infrastructure. So it's getting that right is also important. You don't want to send your child to school, the next thing they just don't come back home. You're having a dead body coming back home. So that's quite, I think, important as well. And also to push up his bachelor passes, because just passing matric right now, as we know, is not necessarily good enough. It's the quality of that pass will be important if he can, in as much as there's an 80%, 85% that he's expecting from the schools, but the individual student as well. And also the continuation of the rolling out of the ITC programs within the various schools. We know money is a challenge. He did speak that he had gone to approach private funders, if that then can be implemented and the money can meet the needs of the province. But definitely a space issue is quite important. To remember that last year a school that was earmarked to be a primary school had to accommodate grade 8s because of space challenges. So that I think is also quite important. But also I think the quality of what learners are producing, because to get an F and then what happens after that.
Do you think this might set a precedent in terms of when society doesn't want a particular person in a particular role? Do you think they're going to put pressure on a particular premier?
Well, we do know that the president had a bit of feedback over his. We haven't seen him changing his mind, but we are hoping that it will set some sort of precedent where politicians understand and they know that they just didn't appear in the office. They were voted by people. It's quite important to be inclusive in the decisions that you take and take society into your confidence, because at the end of the day, you are a servant of the people and you must listen to them.
It's about listening to the folks that voted you in. Thank you very much indeed for your insight. Mahlako Komandi there, SABC News reporter.